If I'm an executive in January, looking at my LinkedIn profile, what should it contain? What must it contain so that a recruiter who's using these filters, otherwise perusing the territory, says, aha, that's what we want. How should I be thinking about that profile?
The idea that you've been told is you've been hearing about LinkedIn. They always talk about coming up in searches. But when you get to the executive level, there's just so many of them, right? And you get to the executive level, the goal is not just to come up in the search. The goal is to come up, not in any search, okay? Because if you just are optimized, have your profile optimized in a way, and when I say optimized, I literally mean the same way that an SEO specialist would optimize a website to come up higher on Google. And in order to do that, they need to know the right words to use. These words are not generic. These words are specifically meaning what is your audience searching for, not any audience. Because if you try to load your profile with a bunch of generic terms, just so you show up in a lot of searches, you're going to come up in a lot of searches, but you're going to come up so far back that they're never going to see you. If you optimize your profile per your unique value proposition and the terms that a recruiter would be using to find that person, that's why there's no generic scenario here, then you will come up maybe in less searches, but higher up. And that's the winning formula. So I know that one of the first steps that we take once we take a deep dive into somebody's value proposition is then we reverse engineer it and say, if somebody were looking for that, let's get them optimized with the right words for what they would be using to come up in that search. And then we tweak it against LinkedIn Regular and LinkedIn Recruiter until we're getting them to come up as high as possible. And the only way to do that is to test and to know the search firm, to know the search terms that they would be using to find you.
Right. So interpreting what you've said, if I am relying on words like I'm an innovative, seasoned, accomplished team leader who creates growth and opportunity and rewards my customers, blah, 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 that's not the way to advance your cause, correct?
90% of it, no.
Right. Okay.
What you're doing is you're describing every executive out there. Now, the growth scenario, I don't know, we might want to take a deeper dive into that. You know, some people are growth people, some people are turnaround people, some people have a unique scenario in which they create both. But it has to be specific to your discipline, and it has to be definitely specific to your discipline, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not that it has, like, for instance, you know, we work with a lot of people that are already at the C-level and now want to bridge over to maybe they're a CMO or a CTO. I think most recently I remember a CTO that now says, I'm ready to be a CEO. Well, how do you take that knowledge from what you learned as a CTO to show a particular value on what you create for a company that you would run, and how do you market yourself as such? And so we look at those words. And again, if you use the generic words, you're going to come up in a lot of searches. Well, I don't know, a lot of searches, but if you use a key, put it this way, if you use those words, those are not the words, most like 90% of them that recruiters are putting in. They're not putting in, I can't even remember all of it you said, but my brain was going. They are putting in things that are pretty specific. And so you want to be able to, if you just keyword load it, you dilute the weight that each and every word has. And without getting too technical about the algorithm, if you're, say, for instance, your header, which is probably the most heavily weighted item on the whole algorithm, probably, but the header, if you just fill that up using every character you can and dump a bunch of words in there that may be keywords, you've now diluted the weight that each word would have to come up in a search. as where if it were shorter and more specific, you will come up higher in that search.
And if you're listening, everyone, and saying, how could I possibly do this myself? Guess what? You can't. It's really hard to do this yourself, especially to objectify who you are and approach your profile or any other piece of marketing for that matter in a way that it really needs to be done. So this is why Kim earlier chatted out the link to connect with us. Yes, this is a public service announcement. It's my one moment. I'm going to use it. Please consider connecting with us. We're here to help you with these things. And that's why you've been invited to this call to learn, but also benefit possibly from the personal interaction that we offer people like you. So please consider it as you hear the rest of our talk today. Really great stuff, everyone. I love the LinkedIn questions. Saundra, there's one more that I got to ask because it's come out a couple of times. This business of displaying open to work at the executive level, is that a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, let me just paint out the scenario a little bit. When a search goes out to an executive recruiter, keep in mind, they've already reached out to 20 or 30 people on their own, on average, sometimes more. But they're going to pay that recruiter to go find the high-hanging fruit. This is something very specific that only happens at the executive level role. They want that high-hanging fruit in a way where there's a lot of stereotypes involved. Like, for instance, if they're not working, why? Why haven't they been gobbled up? And there's a lot of reasons that exists for very good people. But the open to work badge can display some maybe subliminal neediness, I guess, or low-hanging fruit. I'm going to say neediness, low-hanging fruit to an executive recruiter. For myself as a recruiter, for me to submit somebody who's not passive, that would be, I'd be taking a pretty big chance, meaning like, you know, somebody who's already out there looking and that's the person I'm submitting. And don't get me wrong, you're probably listening to this going, that sounds awful. Yeah, it kind of is. Remember, I don't do it anymore. Thank you to ExecuNet for allowing me to be a candidate advocate versus a company advocate.
Happy to help out.
But I will tell you that there is an advantage to putting it on for a couple of days. Now, we used to not say this, but I've seen this recently. If you put it on for a couple of days, what is going to happen is an alert is going to go out to your whole entire network, and people who are on LinkedIn, you know, are going to get this notification. And in the first couple of days, you're going to get a flood of people giving you ideas. Most of that, I promise you, if you haven't really built your brand, is probably going to be a little off course. And you end up just kind of, you know, what are they thinking that job's not right for me. Keep in mind, a lot of times for the executive, the job that they get wasn't even an open job when they started looking. So the odds that your actual network's going to know of that open job for you, that's not where their radar is. But you will get the opportunity to reconnect with people based on them engaging with you, which you have to just make that, like I said before, you just have to make that investment. And that's part of, when I said make the investment for the competitive edge, I mean time and money. And that time might be just to, if somebody posts to you and it's somebody that you actually know and says, oh, wow, I can't believe you were let go at company, or I'll keep my eyes open for you, you know, and you like their comment, pick up the phone, call them. And even though they said, I don't really have anything for you, you've now got an engagement, and you can just get on the phone with them and reconnect and kindle and you know, kindle some old thoughts of what it is that you used to do, or rebrand with them, or just, get an update on what's happening in their life and start to really get your networking legs out there. So I wouldn't probably leave it on much after that. Thank you for bringing that up, whoever brought that up, though.
No, there have been a few people, so thanks for addressing it.